Hi everyone, I'm ready to bake some bread and we're going to talk about case scenarios within regards to baking bread, which a woman would do inside someone's house with permission or not. We've been talking all about in Daf Yomi here on page 48, Masechet on Masechet Bava Kamma, within regards to different case scenarios where an animal, an object, or a person could potentially damage somebody else. See, I've got the flour ready, I've got the eggs ready, and I have got my bowl ready over here. I just need a bit of oil. So you've had a long day. I want to challenge your minds going here on this late evening here after a busy Shabbat. We have come out of the last couple of days with a couple of questions over here. And what do you think the answer is going to be? We're talking about a women's right to privacy over here. And very, very much very considerate. So I'm going to ask two questions. I'll tell you two answers and then spot the difference over here in the questions. First question, there's two cases here. Case number one, to get your minds brewing. Okay, envision the case. A woman enters, with a permission, a house of a neighbor in order to bake bread in his oven, inside his oven over here. The neighbor, and now what's going to happen next? The neighbor's goat is going to eat the dough over here, which is already made. The dough is going to be eaten by the goat. And as a result, this goat is going to become sick and die. Who's going to be liable? Is it going to be the woman who has had a permission to go to the neighbor's house? Or is the neighbor who's allowed her to come there to bake the bread at this point in time? She's baked the bread. Is he going to be liable? Who is going to be? So the ruling is that the great rabbi of the name Rava is going to rule that this woman who has been given permission to bake the bread there must pay for the damage caused to the goat through her negligence. So why negligence? She's had permission, one could argue. So why should she pay? So the cynic or the critic will argue over here. Okay, so we'll leave that aside. Now, the second case scenario, case B, let's call it, case number two. A woman, again, with the permission, is granted permission, enters a neighbor's house to grind some wheat over here. So she's been given permission and she's grinding the wheat over here. And then in turn, the neighbor's animal eats this specific wheat, whichever was made, will become sick and die. So it sounds like a similar case to the first one, but there is a subtle difference in it. So what's going to be the answer? Is the woman herself who's been given the permission over here going to be liable or not? So rulingly, according to the sages, this woman is going to have no responsibility to the damage, as opposed to the first case, where the woman is going to be liable for any damages that happens to the goat over here, if especially it dies or gets hurt. In this second case, where she has grinded some wheat over here, and the goat is going to eat this wheat, she is not going to be responsible for the damage. So there's a subtle difference in the case. So let's try and find out what the logic of this is. Why is it in the first case, case A, that the woman is going to be liable, in the case where she's actually baking the bread itself? And in the second case, where she's just grinding the wheat, she isn't liable. So what's the difference over here? This is according to Rabbi Mendel Weinbach, Zecher Tzadik Libracha, from Yeshivat Or Samech. So he points out the difference. When a woman receives permission to enter a house, she must assume responsibility for guarding the host's animal from damage only when her presence precludes the host's ability to be present. In the process of, let's say she's in the process when she is baking, the intense heat forces her to roll up her sleeves. She's going to have to roll up her sleeves here. Let me do that also. This renders it improper for the host to remain in the house, and responsibility for guarding the host's animal from damage devolves upon her at that stage in time, once she's rolled up her sleeves. So at that stage in time, if the responsibility is on her. This need for privacy, however, is not present when she's just merely grinding the wheat over here at that point in time, and she's modestly dressed at that point in time. She's modest because the sleeves are rolled down totally. It's not rolled up at that stage in time. At that point in time, it's still the animal's behavior is the responsibility of owner over here. But once she's baking and everything else, and she has to put the things up, at that stage in time, the owner has to go outside because she's not totally modest at that point in time. And now it's in her jurisdiction to have a great amount of care within regards to the animal and everything else. So that's absolutely phenomenal, this difference. And it teaches us another thing over here, friends, over here. Sorry to labour this at this point in time. It just shows how important modesty is seen in the Gemara's eyes and in the Torah's eyes over here. One might think that, the person's growing up to look at this thing, grown up in this society and stuff like that. But modesty is important at the end of the day. Hashem's created us a B'Tselem Elokim. There's appreciation of Tzniut and everything else. And the Torah in this stuff is advocating that. And it's saying that, if a woman, because she's in kneading and grinding, and she's not necessarily totally going to be modestly dressed because of the heat and everything else, then she needs her privacy at that point in time. And that just shows importance of modesty. And we live in the day and age where, unfortunately, you can go out and it's not like it was 70, 80 years ago, where people were dressed up in a very dignified, with the ties and everything else, with suits, with tuxedo. Nowadays, people are going all over, trying to catch attention. Actually reminds me one time, I think I must have been back in the year 1999. I went into, I believe it was Selfridges or Harrods, a very famous centre in central London. I think I came with like a sleeveless or a top that was up to here, cut. And the guy that was working there told me, no, you can't come inside. You've got to be dressed with a shirt or something like that. So, I was baffled at the time. What's the reason for this? But now you see the appreciation, because when people have a uniform, when people are modest and presentable, it brings some sort of responsibility. It brings some dignity. And the Torah over here is identifying that over here, that if a woman has to roll up her sleeves, then other people should not necessarily potentially be in the room, especially the opposite gender over here. So it just shows us a lesson in Tzniut. Also teaches us a lesson within regards to the different subtle differences there could be on the outcomes of different situations. I'd like to dedicate this Lilu Nishmat, this video, to Nissan Ben Luba, who passed away 4 years ago last month. May his neshama be in a very good place at the moment, and to all of Am Yisrael. Wishing you all a fantastic day. I'm all ready over here. Got myself all geared up. And just blessings here from Israel. Take care.